You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Good evening. This is the time that you would normally hear my intro playing to you with that soft, smooth, jazzy sound of Year of the Cat. Unfortunately, it's not functional, so I am your intro as well as your host. You're listening to Paranormal Experience Radio, and I am Kat Hobson. I'm so thrilled to be here tonight. You know, I just got back from the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash that was hosted by the Ghost Exchange, and I'm so sorry, Pam, I just completely messed that up. But it was hosted by Steve and Pam Berry, and it completely was supporting the Pennsylvania Wounded Warriors Incorporated. I ran into so many friends, former guests, new friends, people I've dealt with online for probably the last 10 years, and it was wonderful. Anytime I can get a hug off Krista Segere and Jeff Leeper and Jane Zanito and all in 3 days, I'm a happy girl. So, you know, if you have a chance, you need to go and check that out next year. It's a wonderful event. And I am here to welcome my friend, someone that y'all absolutely are nuts for, and I know that, and someone who has come through an extreme haunting, and we'll talk about that too a little bit, and has moved so much farther up. She and her family have all just found their way into absolutely wonderful lives, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that because Andrea has so many things going on. She is brilliant, she is kind, she is all about positivity, even in stress. Hi, Andrea, how are you? Andrea Perrin.
I'm not as stressed as I was 10 minutes ago. I can tell you that.
Me either.
You should have seen me running through this house. I hear the Skype. And then my phone starts ringing and I'm like, Dad, answer my phone. Dad. I can't find him anywhere. It's like, my best friend in the world, and I can't just ignore the phone. So I answered the phone. I'm like, Susie, I can't talk to you right now. I'm starting an interview. And that was my last 5 minutes before we actually came on the air. But that's okay. My adrenaline's going. I'm well caffeinated. I'm ready, willing, and able. You can shoot anything at me. You know that as my personal friend. There's nothing off the table. You can ask me anything at all, my dear.
Well, I appreciate that. And, it's always good to get that adrenaline rush as you go into the show. We both have that going on tonight. So, lots of fun. Well, how is your dad, that wonderful man?
Oh, he's great. He's just lovely. And a couple of our friends, he's coming up to Michigan to the Sioux with me tomorrow for the weekend, and it's his birthday on Monday. He'll be 83.
Really?
And my mom's birthday is on Friday. So it's, it falls every year. It seems to fall on that weekend where, they're August 24th and August 27th. So as soon as I get back from Sault Ste. Marie, I'm going to drive up and spend a couple of weeks with my mom before all heaven breaks loose. And I have to get on the road for the duration of the year. I'll be pretty much gone until the middle of November. So and in the midst of that, have written and am publishing a new book that I was instructed to do it. It was a grand total. I opened the file on it. I thought about it for about 3 weeks while I was working on my second screenplay of the third so that we can get the movies full steam ahead for the trilogy. And then I had a very special experience a healing that occurred for me in May 24th. And then for the next few weeks, I just kept getting these flashes of thoughts and things that I needed to share and I needed to write down and I needed to express and I needed, and about the galactic family. And it is my true passion in life. I mean, nothing matters more to me than knowing we're not alone in the universe. So I kept making notes and notes, and they were just piling up all over my desk. And on July 7th, I think July 7th or July 8th, I opened up a file, and in one day I had my title, I had my index, and I had started writing the book. And about 3 weeks later, I had a rough draft. And since then, I've been polishing it and editing it and adding photographs of some of my best captures and, really putting together a volume that I hope will touch a lot of hearts and in my little part of the world, of the paranormal world, will open people's minds to what's all around us and what's integrated with us, and that's the galactic family. It's a given. They're here. We finally have official governmental disclosure as of December of last year. It's I thought there would be some big hoopla about it, but there was like nothing.
Nothing. No crickets, right?
I know.
Pretty
I couldn't
much.
even believe it. I couldn't even believe it. No, I mean, and it made all the national news outlets. It was everywhere, omnipresent for about 3 or 4 days, and then we just moved on. And I don't know if it was a case of, people thought that it was quote unquote fake news, or if they just assumed that it was true all along and kind of humphed and said finally, or if they were just frightened by it and chose to ignore it. And it might be a combination of those three, and there might be other variables as well. But I was shocked by the absence of reaction to it. And something told me I needed to write this book, not only to write about what happened to me the night that my crippled body, my very badly hurt body was healed, but how that happened and what my engagement with them is. So my new book is called A Wonder to Behold, Guideposts for Intergalactic Engagement with Humanity.
I cannot wait to read it.
It's intense.
I know that we have talked about this before. People are always apparently surprised when we go into discussion of ETs because, we're both supposed to be paranormal people. And I did do air quotes. That was just hilarious. But like you could see that.
Yourself? Very cool. That's very funny.
I'm just making emphasis for me. But we both are interested in this.
Yeah, but it does fall under the umbrella of the paranormal.
Yep.
It's not. There's an ephemeral quality about it. There's a mystical quality. There's a dimensional quality about it. It's fifth dimension versus the spiritual realm, which is fourth dimension. It's probably, I would say, of everything that's under the paranormal umbrella, which is quite expansive.
Mm-hmm.
I would give it more credence than virtually anything else.
Well, I've got to tell you that I do too. And I was very fortunate. I know that you follow my travels like I follow yours. I was at Contact in the Desert this year. And I got to meet someone who has rocked my world for quite some time. And that's Whitley Strieber.
Oh, I love him. He's so great.
He is. Have you spoken with him since he's written his new book?
No.
He and Anne wrote it together after she crossed.
Yeah.
And to say that relationship has continued in a spiritual and ET realm would be an actual fact. The woman is still with him. They are in communication, and they planned that about 30 years ago, and he had forgotten about it. So definitely it's still there. Yeah. And I learned so much when I was there, and it just struck me that, gosh, I wish Andrea was sitting right here because we could be discussing this stuff as it's happening. And, I too was shocked by the lack of response to the video. I mean, it's video.
Yeah,
It's right
it's
there.
still what. Well, I made about a week later. I made a video about it, Kat, because I was really kind of thunderstruck
Mm-hmm.
by the silence around it. And so I made a video that's out on, anybody can find it. It's out on my, it's called Disclosure, and it's on my Andrea Perrin YouTube and House of Darkness, House of Light YouTube channels. And I addressed that. But I really think that, as I described it in the video, I think that it was nothing but a deflection technique and that there's something much bigger going on. And I don't for a moment think that anybody walked into the Pentagon on the morning of December 16th, 2017, and said, let today be the day that we tell the world the truth.
Right.
And, oh, let's completely circumvent the White House, and let's do this on our own with an ex-government official that no longer works for us, but worked with us and ran this program. Nobody did this spontaneously. This was, I believe, a well-planned, well-coordinated event, and it was a deflection technique, and what I described at the time as imparting knowledge equivalent to a snowflake on top of an iceberg the size of Antarctica.
Yes.
It was a crumb and a morsel and a nothing, but what it was official governmental disclosure directly from the Department of Defense. And it was about an incident that occurred off the USS Nimitz, just southwest of San Diego in 2004. They lied through their teeth about this whole program being shut down, over and done with.
Right.
The amount of money that went into it. I mean, it's just absurd. It's ludicrous that they would, put this man out there no longer under the guise of, his uniform, and just shovel this misinformation our way. What they did do was track a vehicle, and they were honest about that. They tracked a vehicle, a vessel, that went from 60,000 feet to 50 feet above the surface of the ocean in an immeasurable amount of time, a fraction of a second. And then they chased it down, except that it had cloaked, and all you can see beneath it are the vibrations of the surface of the ocean. And they filmed that. And interestingly, the Weather Channel did a piece on it, but they didn't use an anchor, and the report had zero to do with the weather. But they did explore it a little bit more deeply, and a little extra footage showed up in the Weather Channel piece that they did on it. And as I said, it was a crumb, a tidbit, and a morsel. And it was riddled with inaccuracies, and it was riddled with misinformation about what that program did, how it functioned, who was involved, and its status as defunct. I don't for a second believe that. I know better.
Yep.
So, and I know you do too. So it's, we're still playing games. We're still being fed pablum like we're babies, and there's a little tiny spoon at our lips. And I find it disheartening, disconcerting, infuriating.
And offensive. Offensive. We are not imbeciles.
No, well, some of us are imbeciles.
Well, yes, but we're not incapable. And it's just, I find it very frustrating because, this is not that man had not been gone from his Pentagon official duties long enough to be with To the Stars. I mean, He was still under all of the rules that still apply, because you have to go through an extensive time frame before you can go into another position of that nature.
Yeah,
so it had to be implanted.
Yes,
and then,
he was, absolutely. And, he agreed to it. But the thing is that he is in full possession of his security clearance.
Right.
And, and had way more information, imparted inaccurate information
Yes.
about what's actually going on, deliberately so. And that I consider nefarious. That I consider not concern about how people are going to react, but more a way to preserve their power around this. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm not quite so indignant about it, but well, less indignant about it than I have been. But still, I've come to the conclusion that we are the point of disclosure. You and me and anybody that's had any experience, whether they're a contactee, an experiencer, if they consider themselves an abductee, the way Whitley does.
Right.
It's I think that it's incumbent upon each one of us to speak our truth. And that's a lot about what my book's about empowering my reader, to share their experiences, even if it's just privately among friends, to raise the vibration of the whole entire planet by allowing what is the light to surface. This is a situation that has gone on long enough. It's been more than 70 years.
Right.
And those of us on this planet who are actively engaged with extraterrestrials are offended for them that this persists the way that it does. It's unnecessary. It's insulting to what I perceive to be, human intelligence. And yes, there are some people that will probably react adversely when it really does hit them. But that's the reason why they don't all show up in the sky at one time, because they don't want to do anything that's going to disrupt our timeline, to disrupt our society. It's disrupted enough. They don't want anybody to suffer or be hurt. They're incredibly altruistic and benevolent beings. I engage only with light beings. I'm not saying that every race that visits this planet is so generous of spirit or kind-hearted, but I don't have anything to do with any dark forces. Nothing dark comes near me. I feel very, very well protected in that regard. So what I do is teach people how to see them and encourage them to make contact. And that's the thing that I do in my life now that brings me more enjoyment than virtually anything else. More enjoyment than chocolate.
Oh, dear.
More enjoyment than...
I don't know about chocolate. I kid, but I do get it. We're 2 minutes out from a break, and that's fine. 2 minutes is forever in radio.
Yeah.
But when you talk about you're teaching this, right?
Yeah.
There's never going to be a landing on the White House lawn. There's never going to be anything of that nature, because that would be detrimental to humans and to ETs alike. And I find it interesting that this is something that has developed in you. It's always been there, but it's really, really developing at this point. It has been for probably, the last 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet they come to you. And I've found, I'm a great hammock sitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I watch the sky at night because I'm always looking for meteors. And it's very peaceful. It's when I unwind before I go to bed. And I always see things. And I was talking with a friend of mine who is in a leadership role with MUFON while I was doing that one night. And I said, you know what? This is here. I have my sky guide. I know the constellation. This is just bizarre. What do I do? Mm-hmm. And they asked me to submit a report to MUFON. Well, you know what? It let me fill it out. It let me do all the things. It would not let me submit. And I was like, seriously. So I messaged back and I said, you know what? I tried.
Yep.
That's not going to work.
Yeah,
so,
there was reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah, there was. And, I did that out when I was in Sedona. David and I had gone on a night sky tour. Mm-hmm. And was poo-pooed by the astrologer who was leading the thing. And, I have talked us into this break. So we will be back in 3 minutes. Y'all just enjoy this interlude.
Okay.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
I'm back.
I am too. We have got people who are showing up in chat for you, and we've got Karen Craig, who is here, and we have, I don't know how to say this, SOHN Conduit. We have Wendy Schindler, and we have Jacob. And Jacob has a question relevant to your family's experience. Okay. And are you ready for that now, or would you prefer to wait a little bit?
No, that's fine.
Okay. And he wanted to know, when the entity approached your mother both times and your mom tried to wake your father up. And he said, if the spirit uses energy to manifest, then do you think that your dad didn't wake up because the entity was using all the energy he needed to be able to?
I think that that's certainly plausible. I also know that there are certain energies that can kind of knock us out, almost put us in a state of suspended animation, or what some people experience as sleep paralysis. Now, there is, a medical condition called sleep paralysis, but that can also be mimicked in the spirit world. And I know that for a fact because I suffered it once myself at the farmhouse, where I was wide awake. I knew exactly what was happening. My mother was under attack downstairs, and I could not move to go assist her. And I felt very much oppressed. I felt very much like whatever it was that had control over me was exerting a power that I could not counter it. And so my mom went through. It was a way that everybody was held at bay. My father laying right beside her. She did everything she could to wake him up. I mean, like abusively so, just pulling his hair and pounding on his back, and she thought he was dead. She really did. So,
Oh,
that was more than a case of sleep paralysis. That was, either she was in a different dimension with the spirit when it was happening, or I don't know. And I wish that I did have that answer, because I mean, scientifically, I think it would be fascinating to have that answer, to know definitively. But I don't know. But I certainly think that that hypothesis is a plausible one.
well, I think it is too. And thank you. I appreciate that, Jacob. So, when we were talking about disclosure, if you don't mind moving back to that,
Now,
because I know that really is your passion right now. But,
oh, that's my passion all the time
right?
since I was 13 years old, and I'm almost 60.
Oh, don't even go there. I'm about to get that close too.
Yeah,
And I don't mind, because you know what? It beats not doing it.
that's right.
I love
The only other
birthdays.
option is to not be here anymore. I'll take this, thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. Well,
Yeah.
one thing I want to hear about is your healing.
Well, it was a, excuse me, it was a very uh, compelling thing that happened to me. I've had some extraordinary things happen to me in the past, healings. I even have scars on my body from it. But this was particularly, uh, it was particularly shocking to me because I was conscious, and I was laying diagonally across my bed, which is pretty much how I lay, with pillows propped all around me. It was about 2 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, on the morning of the first hours of May 24th. And because I lost my baby sister April last year, at first I
Yes.
thought what I felt on the bed was her, because she has come and made her presence known to everybody in our family. And so I thought what I was feeling was, possibly April just sitting down on the bottom of the bed. And I hoped that it was her. But I was laying there transfixed, listening to an interview that I had missed earlier in the night. And so I was catching the rerun, and I know I appeared to be asleep. I had my right arm thrown over a body pillow. I had a body pillow behind my back, a pillow under my head, my arm under that pillow, and with my legs laying diagonally and my feet hanging off the bottom of the bed. And the whole uh, bottom corner of the bed where my feet were, suddenly, well, not suddenly, really. I mean, I felt that there was a change in the bed.
Right.
Um, that was sudden, but it slowly compressed the mattress downward to the point where I felt my feet kind of slip down. And I didn't move. I didn't make any indication that I was conscious. I just felt it. I just sensed it and hoped that it was April. And I figured in a moment or so I would know if it was her. And then in that next moment, suddenly my feet became so hot that, had I been in the third dimension, I would have been screaming and writhing in pain. The pressure and the heat that was being laid upon my feet was so intense that I don't think anybody could have survived it had they actually experienced it, and yet it didn't hurt me. It was not painful in the conventional sense of the word. Excuse me. And then it started slowly, methodically, at a very even pace, moving up my body, up my legs to my torso. And as that heat and that pressure was spreading and spreading, I think I just stopped breathing. I didn't know what to think. I did not move a muscle. I just felt it happen. It felt as though I had half of a sarcophagus that was filled with boiling liquid, pressurized boiling liquid, moving slowly up my body.
Oh, good
When
heavens.
it got to just below my rib cage is when I had my moment of panic, because I thought at that point, I'm being taken. This is how they do it. And they think I'm asleep. And so I immediately propped myself up. And believe me, that series of thoughts happened in a fraction of a second. I mean, I just had a moment of adrenaline shoot through me, like, what is going on here? And I propped myself up in the bed on my left elbow. The instant that I moved, it stopped its progression and then slowly began at precisely the same rate of speed, slowly moving down my body, retreating, as it were, retracting whatever it was. And when it went off the bottom of my feet, whatever heavy, heavy thing had been laid on the corner of the bed was lifted up. Well, at the point that I lifted up, I turned immediately and looked down on my body, because I thought for sure there had to be something on me.
Right.
And there was nothing. And I could see because I had the television on. So I had the light from that. I always keep light on in my room at night. I never sleep in pitch blackness, ever. And so I was a little surprised that there was nothing on me. And when it got to the very bottom of the bed, the mattress returned to its normal height. And for a moment, Kat, I just kind of stayed in the position that I was. Like, I'm still listening to the interview. It's going on in the background. And I'm thinking, did this actually just happen? Did this just happen? And then I had a wave hit me. It was fatigue that was debilitating. And I laid my head back down on the pillow, and I don't remember anything after that. And I woke up at the crack of noon the next day.
Oh, my.
My father was very, very concerned, kept coming to my door, knocking on my door. There was no response. He was concerned, and he didn't want to intrude on, my room and my privacy and my wing of the house, but he was concerned. And when I woke up, instead of rolling out of bed, which I had done for weeks and weeks after a very severe low back injury that I sustained while I was in Georgia, I just sat up and stepped out of bed and stood up and felt like I was 10 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
There was zero pain in my body. I hadn't been able to stand up straight in probably 6 weeks. The only way that I could even walk semi-normally was with a fistful of Motrin in me. It was a very, very severe lower lumbar sprain that was simply not healing properly. And I was in so much pain that I wouldn't even go to a chiropractor. I did not want to be touched. I did not. And I hopped up out of bed and I was like, oh, Mother of God, oh my God. And walked into the kitchen, and my father's like, oh, I was really concerned. And then he turns and he looks at me and he's like, what happened to you? And he said, you're so tall. And he measured me, and I was back to like 5'9 3/4, my fullest adult height, which I had lost almost 3/4 of an inch of over the course of my lifetime, just from gravity, who's no friend of mine. I don't know about you, but gravity is no friend of mine. And and my height had been restored. My hips were completely aligned. All the swelling that was occurring in my left knee was completely gone. All the pain, the swelling, and the popping sound that was happening in my left ankle, that was gone. Um, and the pain that I had been having in my right shoulder and into my neck, into the vertebrae area on the right hand side, that was gone. I stood there having a virtually, it was an epiphany. It was like a religious experience. Honestly, it was absolutely amazing to me. After suffering and suffering for as long as I had gone up right after the anniversary of my sister's death. I had come back from an event and just immediately got off the plane, unpacked, repacked, and left for Georgia so that I could be with my mother on the 1 year anniversary of my sister's passing. And I missed it by a day, but I was there for the anniversary of her funeral. And I don't know why these things are important to us, but they are. And I knew that it was important to my mother and she would need my support and I needed to be there. So I went and I stayed for about 7 weeks because Georgia had a really bad winter last year and the property had been decimated. There were many limbs down. There was just so much work to do, the cleanup, the debris. My mom's 78. She'll be 79 on Friday. And my sister Christine broke her leg last year and she can't do anything. So it was me. And I spent weeks working in the yard every day, cleaning up 2 acres of land, which doesn't sound big, according to the number. But once
It's
you're
big.
out on 2 acres of land, that it's a pretty sizable lot. And many, many trees on the property. And so it's really more like a park than anything. And so it was an extraordinary amount of work, backbreaking. And it literally, I thought it broke my back. So when this happened to me, there really are no words to express the depth of my gratitude for whatever it was that happened to me. But after it happened, not only could I not stop thinking about it, but I was getting a lot of downloads. I was getting a lot of messages. I was getting many, many more sightings than usual. And that's saying something because I can easily have 20, 30 sightings a day. It just depends on, how often I go out. Sometimes I don't even have to go out. I'll have sightings right through my own computer screen. They have infiltrated all my technology. They have, they fried the motherboard in my phone a few months ago. I had to go get a new phone. I told them my attitude is if you're smart enough to break it, then you should be able to be smart enough to fix it.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to have to go spend another $600. But I ended up getting an entirely different kind of phone that takes pictures of them with incredible ease, day or night, unlike the camera that I did have. So I guess there was purpose and reason for that too.
There always is, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and
they don't do
I'm
anything
very
by
grateful.
accident.
Yeah, I am. I'm very grateful and deeply moved, touched by their concern, their consideration for me, and their willingness to. And I think that they had an oops moment. I think they thought that I was asleep, and then when it retracted from me, they made sure I was asleep.
Right.
For whatever they were doing. But I just, I had that little moment of panic. As much as I'm familiar with them, as much as I love and trust them, I didn't want whatever was moving up my body to cover my head. And I think that's a normal human reaction. I just,
Absolutely.
wanted to be able to, I didn't want to have an abyss moment, where I'm gasping some hot fluid into my lungs and then can suddenly, figure out that I can breathe that too. I just didn't want the trauma of that. And so I stopped it. And I know this is, I'm not stupid. I know this is really hard for some people to process This is information that is literally out of this world. It's difficult to believe. In fact, you have to suspend your disbelief in order to listen to it with an open mind. This is my life. I have had numerous experiences throughout my life, many different encounters with many different races. I still don't even know everybody that I'm talking with or singing to or teaching people to see. I don't even know who they are. But I know that I love them. I feel a higher love for them. I feel a love for them that I don't feel for anyone on earth, including my own family, who I cherish and adore as much as I'm capable of feeling anything for any being. And yet what I feel for them, for who I also perceive to be my family,
Yes.
is cosmic love. It's source energy. It's divine in nature, and I use that word hesitantly because I don't want to imply that I'm some overzealous or zealot religious fanatic and they're my religion. That's not the case at all. I think that they're magical, but with the qualifier being that magic is science we don't understand yet.
Yes, it is. And we are so shocked and awed when we see these things. But every area, no matter where they're from, no matter what galaxy, how far out of, if it's another universe, whatever it is, they're still created beings.
Yeah.
And so I think that probably the divine is not a misspoken opinion about them. I think they may be, but they're still created beings.
Mm-hmm.
I've been spending a lot of time with astronomers that are all into these exoplanets and with physicists who are working on propulsion systems and all this, that, and the other. And, they're, it's just a matter of which technology do you already have. We've got about 30 seconds before our next break, but it's about where your advancement is, don't you think?
Yes, I agree. And we're all at different levels. We're all at different places on the continuum in terms of our own spiritual evolution. And there's no judgment in that. Everybody is different. Everybody's unique and special. So it's not a matter of comparative analysis. It's a matter of reaching out and sharing the experience and helping someone along who might need that support through a difficult time. One of the things I discussed at length in the book were all the different symptoms of spiritual ascension, the physical manifestations of it. This is no easy feat for any of us. And I've been well into it since like 2012 is when it hit me like a brick. So I just try to comfort people and make them feel accepted and believed. That's the most important. That's the greatest kindness that you can extend to someone. And one time only, I got burned, really burned. Somebody just lied and lied and lied through their teeth.
Word.
And when it all came out, my followers that knew about it, their heads blew off their shoulders. I mean, this particular individual was persona non grata.
I bet.
And, I never, ever, ever retaliated in any way around it. I just think that that kind of energy serves no purpose at all.
No.
For somebody to be that desperate for attention that they would, make up a story the way that they did. I guess maybe to see if I would buy it, if I was that gullible. I don't know what the intentions were behind it. I think it was just more a desperate cry for attention than anything.
Probably.
But literally out of the thousands of people that I have interacted with and I have met, that was one time that someone was disingenuous with me. That's not going to change me, Kat. I will still be open-armed and open-hearted, and I believe somebody and I trust them until they give me good reason to change my mind.
You know
So
what?
there
I
it
can't
is.
I can't picture anything changing you, but we do have to go to break. I'm so sorry to interrupt,
That's okay.
but we will be back in 2 minutes.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And just like that, ta-da, we're back. And you know, Andrea, you've got so many friends who care so much about you, and we have Glenda and Ubu in chat now as well with Brenda and Denise and Shelly, and this is really a lot of people. And Jacob had a comment and a question for you regarding ETs, and the question is, well, comment and question. The first vessel he saw wasn't necessarily a shape. It was like a big light resembling the North Star, but it hovered over the house doing 360s. Have you ever seen a vessel that looked like, well, any star really, but the North Star specifically?
I saw a vessel that looked like what I perceived to be the Star of David. It was just shocking.
That would be shocking.
Yeah, I wrote about it in the book. It was, and I was with my producer. He was taking me to the airport, and there was this enormous cloud right over Atlanta, and all the rest of the sky was completely clear except for this huge cloud over Atlanta as we were coming in to the city to head to Hartsfield International Airport. And I was looking at the cloud thinking, you know, saying, Les, look at that's a very unusual. That's so unusual. And there's no other clouds, you know, and we're just coming on I-20 driving east. We were going to have to cut south to the airport. And then I saw what seemed like a high intensity spot of light in the middle of the cloud. And the sun had already risen. It was above it, you know, like the sun was at like about 10 o'clock. From the cloud formation itself. And the spotlight started as what appeared to be a pinpoint of light, and then it just kept growing and growing and growing, and then it just exploded, and spikes of light were coming off of every corner of it. It was an explosion of light coming out of the center of this cloud. And you know, we both said, oh my God, what the bleep is that? I mean, it's, less like that ain't no helicopter, I mean, it was wow.
That
Wow.
is wow.
And yeah, and I said, why isn't everybody running off the road? Why isn't everybody running into each other from the shock
Or
of
just
seeing
running.
this?
Or
Yeah.
just running.
I mean, it was really, it was a mind-blowing spectacle. And then the light receded very quickly, and then the cloud just evaporated and disappeared. Interestingly, we talked about it all the way to the airport. Les and I are longtime, very good friends. All the way to the airport, talked about what could it have been? Was it a vessel? Was it a vessel cloaked in a cloud? Was the cloud a vessel? What was that? Why didn't anybody else see it? If they did, why didn't they crash their cars? It was that brilliant. And we got to the airport. He dropped me off. I came back from my trip to Colorado to go do some filming at Gaia TV. He picked me up. He had no memory of it.
Oh my goodness.
None. No memory of it.
That is bizarre.
I check in with him every now and then. Remember that thing we saw in the cloud? And he's like, a deer in the headlights. Doesn't even have any idea what I'm discussing with him.
Oh, that's tragic. I would hate to lose that memory.
It was, he saw it in the moment, but either he shut it down because it was too traumatic or, just too startling, made him too uncomfortable. Either it was a mechanism that triggered in his own brain chemistry that he just simply forgot about it, or they didn't want him to remember because he was having an adverse effect from it.
Well, yeah, that would be logical.
Yeah, so, either way, it's for the best. I just think that it's absolutely fascinating that I don't understand why there weren't just piles of cars all over both sides of I-20.
Brenda in chat said people just don't look up. But that would be tough to miss.
True. I know. We've got all this incredible technology just in our lifetimes. And, so much of it, I think, can be credited to back engineering of vessels that have landed or crafts that have crashed. And yet the supreme irony of that is that this probably intergalactic technology keeps us with our faces hovering down into a phone instead of looking up to the source of the technology.
Right. I think that's a tragedy because, we're so busy. In fact, it prevents human interaction.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll get past this. We're kind of like babies with this technology. And I really do think that we'll get past it. I mostly ignore my phone unless I have some business to do or, I've got an incoming comment from one of my editors or a text from a producer in California or something like that. Other than that, and for the occasional interview that I'm not using Skype, that I'm using my phone. Other than that, my phone sits very lonely.
Well, my husband wishes mine did.
Yeah. Well, I just prefer to look up into the stars. I prefer to connect in that way and not just in terms of, peering up into outer space, but also connecting with nature, just being out in nature.
Well, I do a lot of that, and it's where I do gain those experiences. And, I have dogs, so when you go out, you're playing as well as building something or cleaning something or whatever. But when I read on my phone or my tablet a lot, and because it's easier than carrying books in my bags. Yeah. But when I'm at home, I still do it because it gets to be a habit. You don't even, or I'm better at it now, but I used to wouldn't even, grab my real books. And I love holding a book. There's nothing like connecting with it because you get lost in it.
Yeah.
And I've always done that. But I do with yours, as well as everyone else who I find so fascinating. But I am just really interested in the work that you're doing with Gaia too, and I know that that's probably going to be too long but I just still want to hear about it. What are you doing?
Well, I have done, I believe, 4 episodes of Open Minds with Gina Meredith. That's her series. And she asked me back to do another one. We haven't booked it yet. I've been very busy, and so is she. So we haven't booked it yet, but it always comes together at the right and proper, perfect time for us to do our thing. And I know once this book is released and I send it to her, she's going to just be beside herself. So I know I'll be going back on for episode 5. But it's always lovely to go out to Boulder. It's really one of the prettiest towns in the country.
Yes, it is.
And I have a friend who lives out there. She and her husband live about, I would say, 600 yards from a view of the Continental Divide that would flatten you.
Holy wow.
Yeah, like blow you away. Like you can't even believe, pinch myself, this isn't real. I can't believe I'm seeing this. So every time I go out there, it's absolutely delightful. And the last time that I went, I had a very interesting experience with my limo driver, a story that I included in the book as well. I have a whole chapter in the book called Conscious Contact. And what I did was I just let my memory kind of free float.
Right.
For, let it just go wherever it wanted to. And every time it would kind of settle on a particularly poignant memory or something that really touched me or fundamentally changed me, I'd go, scribble it in, type it into the manuscript, give it a title, a 2-second, 2-line description, and then move on and then free float again, stream of consciousness stuff.
Absolutely.
And before I knew it, I had a couple of dozen incidents, each of which I would qualify as life-altering. So I wrote them up. I wrote the details of each encounter, what I saw, how I interacted, what happened, when it happened, where it happened. And the thing that's so interesting is that, I really, as like a forensic scientist, that I am not. I am an experiencer. Yes. I am somebody who is in contact with them. As a researcher, I leave much to be desired. I don't seem to write things down in a timely way, or I do on a piece of paper that I promptly lose. And yet I knew the month and the year of every single one of these incidents without having to refer back or ask anybody else who knew about it, refer back into my journal, nothing. I didn't even have to look. I just knew when these things happened because each one of them was pivotal to my spiritual evolution, what I consider my spiritual ascension. So, I really hope that people are moved by that because you can have one thing happen to you in your life that fundamentally alters your perspective on everything for the rest of your life. And I've had one incident after another like that. So in some ways, I feel like I'm spiraling off in this direction and spiraling off in that direction. And yet everything is one thing. Everything is energy. And with the realization of oneness, time is irrelevant. We use it, to measure our finite existence here, but it really is irrelevant. It's, our little human timeline, but it's not the truth of the universe. And so right toward the end of it, I even put in a paragraph about, how I named the date and, the month and the year of each one of these incidents. Now put them all out of your mind and think back on this entire chapter as this happened in her lifetime.
Unbelievable.
And it expands consciousness, and a mind expanded does not contract. You can't unthink, unlearn, unread, unhear, unfeel, unthink something that has caused you to grow, to blossom in some way, shape, or form, to chip your way out of our little 3D shell, in reference to the chicken and the egg. We're each encapsulated in our own little 3D compartmentalized world that we think is about 3 dimensions and 5 senses, and that's not anything like the reality of our existence.
I know.
So
it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And, we're at the top of the hour. This is a 5-minute break. So it's a great time to stretch your legs, fill your glass, do cartwheels if you have space. I don't right here. And just mainly take care of you. And we will be back.
listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And we're back. Hi, Andrea. Hello. Oh, that's okay. I heard her come in. She'll be here in just a moment. But, I am having the best time, and I do want to let y'all know that the Gettysburg Ghost Exchange is the business that was sponsoring the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash that was supporting Wounded Warriors of Pennsylvania Pennsylvania Wounded Warriors Incorporated. They were brilliant, and they had all kinds of PIRA people who came out fully supporting that. There were vendors and personalities, I guess you would say. There were lectures. I think my favorite was the demonology lecture that was hosted, or not hosted, but they were the lecturers, by Dave Giuliano, Jeff Leeper, and James Anito. Just absolutely wonderful information, things that I had not really thought about, and I've interviewed all of those people. So it was interesting. And I just thought that I want to give credit where credit's due. The Pennsylvania Wounded Warriors Incorporated put 95 cents of every dollar that comes into them right into the home of a wounded warrior. They only keep 5 cents of it for their mailing expenses and such, because they don't even have offices. Their volunteers operate out of their homes, and pretty amazing stuff. So as we wait for Annie to get back, does anyone have any questions? Oh, I hear you as she comes. But at any rate, we will have her here momentarily. So, why, yes, I think that one of my favorite things when we talk about ETs, and Andrea has actually turned me on to a lot of researchers in this field, one of mine who shares her opinion that these are actually downloads that we get, kind of like an upgrade, would be Grant Cameron. And he shares a lot of the opinions that Andrea has shared with us tonight. And I'm sure that they know each other. But I'm interested in getting more information about the downloads that Andrea receives, so that we can understand better what that is, what to do with them when we receive them. So that's going to be pretty amazing. So Andrea, are you there?
I am.
Yay, I thought you were. I was just rambling on about the weather, and I could not see you. So I apologize for that.
That's okay.
So I wanted to speak with you relevant to a comment that you had made earlier, and it was actually a descriptive term, the downloads, because I've only known a couple of people who are completely in tune with that. One of them would be Grant Cameron, and he also refers to them as downloads. I kind of got laughed at when I was at Alien Con, and Giorgio said, what do you think, where do you think this information comes from? And I was like, downloads. And he just looked at me, he's like, well, I knew you were going to say that. So what would you describe that as? I mean, what information do you get? Are you aware when it's happening?
Yes. Oh, yes. There's no mistaking when it's happening. It begins generally, and, let me preface my remarks by saying when this started happening to me, probably 10 or 12 years ago, I was a little concerned. I had my ears checked. I had my ears checked again. And then I had my ears checked again. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with my hearing.
Is it ringing?
It is it's first of all, it sounds like my whole head gets put in a vacuum. It feels like there's like a poof that happens first. and then there's an absence, complete absence of sound, and then the tonal frequencies interject themselves, sometimes in one ear, sometimes in both ears, sometimes right through my third eye. But generally, it is an all-consuming, and the tonal qualities, the frequencies resonate at entirely different levels, which I think is indicative of perhaps different messages from different races.
Right.
Although I have no way of validating that. That's just my suspicion. They generally last anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds. I've had them last as long as 10 to 15 minutes. And then a couple of years ago, I went into a very serious, I don't know what information was being imparted to me but for about 2 or 3 days, I didn't even feel like I was in 3D. It threw off my equilibrium. I couldn't really walk straight without leaning against something. And the noise, it was an ambient noise, an ambient sound. It was like a background subliminal sound that persisted for days. And I actually got used to it, so that when it finally subsided, I didn't know quite what to make of it because I had adjusted to it. I was able to hear things through it, but it was like a filter that was built into my consciousness. And then it subsided, but I get them regularly, sometimes 2-3 times a day. And I have learned not to fight it. I have learned to accept it and surrender to it. I don't know what information is being imparted to me. If it's happening in that way, it's certainly happening on a subconscious level, even though I am having a physical experience of it. And so when it occurs, if I'm sitting down already, I'll just lean back and close my eyes and take it in. If I'm not, if I'm up and about doing something, I find the nearest position to recline in so that I can relax my body and absorb whatever is, activating. I consider it light activation. I believe that our ancient DNA codes are being activated, and that we're remembering, we as a race are remembering who we are, where we came from, and our importance in the universe. I consider it a gift, a treasure. It does not in any way harm me. All it does is help me. And so I embrace them, and I love it when they come, because I know that I'm being given some more information that I might not understand or be able to process in my conscious mind right now, but that whatever is coming at me is giving me an opportunity for growth and for a higher awareness and an understanding that's deeper than I'd been able to achieve thus far. And so I welcome them.
I find it a little intimidating. I get an awful lot of instances of ear ringing. I don't have tinnitus. I've had my ears checked. And I don't have anything else going on. And one of my friends who's a psychic said, "Oh, those are upgrades." I said, "Well, okay. Upgrades to what?" She said, "You'll figure it out." And, ET experiencers have also said that as well. Mm-hmm. And
I think that those two words get used interchangeably to describe the phenomenon. We've had to create a whole new vernacular around this experiential growth process that we're going through, making conscious contact, tapping into, the collective consciousness. It's really an amazing process that's going on, and it's affecting millions and millions of people around the planet. So the way I look at it is, if we're all evolving and being given this information to help enlighten us on our journey through this new age and into the age of Aquarius and into this higher realm of comprehension, then I feel very grateful and I feel very humbled. There's so much more, technologically advanced, so much more socially evolved, so much more spiritually connected than we are. We have a tendency to make God small to fit our construct, or what we think of as the prime creator or source energy, the infinite intelligence of the universe.
Right.
And so we make that into something that is much smaller and easier for us to digest. And in our Judeo-Christian culture, it's a man with big robes and a beard and a scepter and sits in a throne, according to, the Roman Catholic tradition, pearly gates and all of that. But I don't really think that that's the truth of our existence, Kat. I think that chances are really good that if there was a Messiah, and I do believe that Jesus Christ walked the earth, I do believe that we have completely degenerated the message of love that he left to teach us how to interact with each other so that we could be welcomed into the greater good, the higher realms. And all we did was kill him. But I think that chances are really good that if Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that he is probably an extraterrestrial, and what we worship as God is a creative race that hybridized and created us.
Well, I think that there's a lot of truth to that because of the history that has been found and is never discussed here, at least. It's so obvious. You have these depictions of carvings and graphics all around the planet, almost identical all the way around the planet. Same time frame, all the way around the planet. I mean, just kind of one of those things that, that's a coincidence, right? So
yeah,
not.
Except there is no such thing as coincidence.
No, there's not. And I get so offended. My husband actually, he'll review my evidence from my paranormal investigating, right? But he has actually become very involved and fully supportive of my coverage of the ancient alien cons and the information that is put out, particularly by the Egyptologists and that type thing, because it's right there in front of your face. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I got when I was out in California, I went a couple of times for some different conferences this summer, and one of them was when people were talking. I was fortunate enough to hear Eric Van Daniken several times, but one of the comments that I got was, you're not going to get a craft on the White House lawn. If you want disclosure, you're looking at it. They're letting us do this. Nobody is trying to stop us. They know it's coming. And I think that's why those videos were released, because they know it's coming.
Yeah.
And, there's not going... How are you going to stop that? They can't possibly. That's why they're trying to get information out there, even if it is pseudo information. There are people that are telling the truth, and they're not crazy.
No, they're not. They're experiencers. They're contactees.
Yes. And we have a question. We're going to have to go to break, but we have a question from Jacob when we get back relevant to contactees and the different classifications of people. And I'm sorry, these breaks are so necessary, but I sure do hate stopping the conversation. I love this. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And just like that, here we are. Andrea, I appreciate so much this conversation because, it's been fascinating just the parts that we've covered so far. When you were talking about galactic family, that includes everybody, right?
Yes.
And I know, out of curiosity, do you have a galactic passport?
I have been off world, and I didn't really go into it a lot in the book. A little bit. I went into it a little bit, but it was very interesting because I don't know if you know Chase Klutsky, but she's a good
Very
friend
well.
of mine.
Yes, I do know her.
And we were at the Starworks Symposium together a couple of years ago in a food line at the big gala dinner that they have. And we were talking about, she was standing in front of me, and somebody asked her if she thought she'd ever been off planet. And she said, well, yes. And she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I said, it's blue on blue on blue on blue. And then she looked me dead in the eyes, and she said with me, and it has 2 moons.
Get out.
And we
That is
just
so
put our
weird.
plates down on the table and embraced each other and said, we're from the same place. I think that my sensory perceptions, the deepest soul connection that I feel tells me Pleiades.
Right.
The Pleiadians are my most profound connection. I also know that I'm deeply entrenched with the Arcturians. I know that I have connections to the ancient Anunnaki, and several other races as well. And I gauge that not only in terms of the different resonating messages that I receive from different races, but the wide variety of vessels that I see. And so I don't know who goes with what vessel. I'm sure someday I will, but it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter. All that matters to me is that they're here.
Right.
And that they're engaging with us, that they're communicating with us, that we have conscious contact. That is literally all that matters to me. In the same way that I don't care what the spirits at the farm had for names during their lives, that they exist is what always seemed absolutely mystical and miraculous to me. So none of them ever walked up and said, hello, my name is. So that being said, it was a guessing game based on historical ledgers and records that were available. And I don't care. I don't care. I know what I saw. I know what I experienced in the farm. And I think that in a way, the spiritual realm and what we experienced at the farm was in fact a gateway for us, each one of us, to learn how to interpret what we saw extra-dimensionally, interdimensionally. And that because each one of us, via exposure or overexposure, learned to see the old reality in a new way. That's what opened, I know it's what opened me up for the experience that I had as a 13-year-old that inexorably altered the trajectory of my life. I have been a ufologist way before that term was even invented, and have devoured everything that I can find in terms of informing myself, I know what's true, what's factual, and what's misinformation just based on my own gut, my own reaction to it. If it feels false, it is false. And I've never been wrong. That's always borne out for me. So I know that it's very reliable. I trust my intuition. And I know that as the contact occurs, that each time that it occurs, it opens me up incrementally more so that I have the capacity to receive more. And therein, I think, lies the willingness, the surrender to it, because there's nothing to fear. Absolutely nothing to fear. They are so much more sophisticated than we are in every conceivable way, that if they posed a threat to us and to the existence of humanity, any damage that they wanted to do, any pain they wanted to inflict on us, they could have done millennia ago. They aren't here to hurt us. They're here to help us. They're here to raise the consciousness of this planet simply by hovering around it, by being, having their presence known to countless thousands and millions of people around the planet, who then must dig deeply into themselves, into their own souls, until they penetrate their own fear and release it and begin to share what they have experienced and talk about it and speak their truth. And that's what's changing the world. We are the point of disclosure.
I would agree with that. I have a question for you, though. If they are, I guess, training us, educating us, prepping us, are they going to allow, and I think it is a choice. I really do think it's a conscious choice on their part. Idiotic things like nuclear weapons, idiotic things like Fukushima, things that are still ongoing. Fukushima is going to destroy everything as far as, and there is no fix. And yet they're still building more nuclear facilities with no fix. There were 6 nuclear stations in the path of Irma. 6 plants in the path of Irma as she came toward the U.S. And, you sit there and you look at these things and you know that if we're going to be the people taking care of this, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And are they going to allow us to actually destroy this environment completely? Or do they have the interest, or I know they have the ability, do they have the interest in helping us to be able to stop it? Or is it just going to be an object lesson?
They very much want us to preserve ourselves and to preserve this planet. It's my understanding that in unison they've agreed that it's not their job to interfere.
Right.
And, that's why I wrote the treatise, The Chicken and the Egg. We have to peck our way out of our own dilemma here. An internal force applied against an eggshell is what builds the strength for the chick that pecks its way out to be able to survive on the inside of the egg. It's an equivalent force. If they break that egg for us, then we will not survive. And I think that there's a correlation and an integration in this natural process that we simply must look at. I think that there are numerous ways to enlightenment, numerous paths to enlightenment. I think that when we correlate and integrate with them, that they will be much more willing to intercede on our behalf. And they have, in fact, interceded on our behalf in the past, in more incidents than have even ever been made public. But they can't save us from ourselves. We have to save us from ourselves. And I don't know how much time we have left. We've already done so much damage to this planet. Just the melting of the polar ice caps is releasing ancient methane bubbles that have been there for hundreds of thousands of years that are being released into the atmosphere. If that process speeds up to too much more, it's conceivable that our air could become unbreathable and that we would literally poison on our own oxygen because it's mixed with a toxin. The idiots who deny climate change, sorry, idiots who deny climate change, idiots that pull us out of climate accords, idiots that want nothing more than to pad their pockets with more kickbacks from big oil, big gas, big pharmaceuticals, big medicine, big coal. They are who this is on. We the people have a voice that we failed to use in terms of our forward momentum and progress, in terms of saving our planet. And we have taken a gigantic step backwards. The EPA over the last 18 months has been decimated. 700 plus of the world's best scientists have bailed out because nobody in this administration even wants to hear the words climate change. I live in a state where the governor of the state has declared that those two words cannot be used in conjunction on public property and in the state house. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is ignorance. And in the age of global communication, that anyone can be that freaking stupid scares me way more than anything that's flying around this planet in a vessel that we didn't manufacture.
I would agree because, and I do know everything is cyclic. Truly, everything is cyclic. There are all kinds of things that are just not arguable, though, right? When you start having so many different things that are completely unexpected, and then, the ice caps are enlarging again, and I don't know what that's about. I don't even know how that could be possible. So I'm just trying to...
We're going into a polar
shift.
There's going to be drastic changes.
And I'm just sitting there educating myself as I'm learning. I'm just sitting there going, oh, good God. Right? I am just so frustrated. And,
we're
I don't
almost past the point of being able to repair this.
Yeah, we are. That's what I'm saying. We've got all these natural things on top of that, on top of all of the man-made things, and when it's coming to like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
And, Fukushima is completely man-made. That is complete human responsibility.
It's a man-made disaster, as was the oil rig explosion in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico.
And that touched my house.
Was the Exxon Valdez.
Yes.
Et cetera. Oil tankers that are exploding because the companies are too cheap to double hull what they're taking the most explosive raw oil products around the country in. Every time one of those trains goes up, and, sorry, it happens way too frequently, it does damage to our environment that's irreparable.
Yes.
So it's something that I care very passionately about. I'm sure you could hear that in my voice.
I can. I do too, though. I mean, because truly, I own at the time I owned Gulffront property. And, now I would be, I sat there on my beach watching all these fishermen from all over Baldwin County in my area. I didn't even know what I was looking at. It looked like landfall. right?
Mm-hmm.
And all these people had all their boats out trying to, pulling boom, trying to stop the oil from coming ashore and from coming into the back bays. And, I'm sitting there when I realized what it was, whoa, just crying. Because they're fighting for their way of life. And they're fighting for everything they've ever grown up knowing. It was just awful.
Yeah. Well, and I feel for them. I do. But this is how I really feel. They can pack up everything that they own and they can go live someplace else and they can still make a living on dry land. But when I saw a helicopter shot hovering directly over the oil spill,
with the whales
and saw
the dolphins,
whale writhing
yes,
and dying in not knowing how to release itself from this slick that had completely, utterly encompassed it and was going down its throat and gagging it and killing it, and then watching it sink to the bottom. I wanted to kill someone with my bare hands.
Yes.
That's how I feel about this, because that whale deserved to have a life in its own water without us interfering so that we could line the pockets, so that we could foul our environment when we have all the technology that's conceivably available to us to live in an environment that is completely and utterly clean and could be free. Nikola Tesla gave us everything that we needed, and Westinghouse did everything that he could to silence that man, and bury all of his work. And when my mother says, fear the living, not the dead, she is spot on.
Yes, she is. And I'm going to tell you that I am just stunned, always stunned. Tesla's my hero. I mean, the most exciting thing for me in New York was when I came across Tesla Circle. I mean, that sounds stupid, but it's true. And the fact that they treated him that way, they stole his work so that no one else would have access to it. They do know how to do that, and it's just insane. And I don't. Oh, we could go for days on this topic, but right now I have somebody that wants to know when they can buy your book. I'm sorry.
I will. I have a whole promotional team of I call them the tribe.
Right.
And they call themselves the tribe.
Yes, they do.
Actually, they're the ones that started that, and I just said, "Oh, that's cool. We'll do that." But between my Buttercup Brigade on my fan page and all the people that I have as my most ardent, steadfast followers and readers, will spread it. They will spread the news far and wide. Anybody that wants to know the exact publication date, the moment I have it, I will post it liberally. I've just got a little bit of cleanup left to do. I just want this to be as splendid and perfect as it can be. So I've got my cover, that's all done. I've got my interior, that's all done. Taking care of one thing at a time, submitting one thing at a time, filling out my paper one thing at a time. But when all is said and done, from inception to publication will be less than 3 months.
Well, I'm so ready, and they are too. And, Wendy said, "Careful, the tribe will overload the Spreaker chat area." And I said, "They're already in there." There's several in there. But
I have the most wonderful, extraordinary people that have come into my life. And all of it happened because I found the courage to tell the truth about our story, about the farmhouse. I didn't want, there was already, wind of a movie. I had started writing the books about 3 months prior to hearing that Lorraine Warren wanted to tell the story. And that was when I got my first call from a producer about it. And I was already well into outlining, diagramming, trying to come up with a notebook full of, and a little recipe box full of things written down on note cards of my own. I mean, to say that it was a daunting task to write that trilogy is the understatement of the new millennia. It took 7 years, start to finish, to write, edit, publish all 3 of those books. And it was the biggest commitment that I ever made to anything in my life, but it inexorably changed my life, and it brought people to me that I would never have had the opportunity to know any other way, and that they've changed my life and enriched my life in ways that are literally impossible to describe. Opened me up, supported me when April passed away.
Yes.
We got thousands and thousands of cards and letters and messages and condolences, and it felt like the sympathy of the world, which brought my mother great comfort at a time where no parent should ever have to bury a child.
No, they
It's
should not.
proof that there's nothing fair about life. And we didn't even know how she was going to deal with this, if this would claim her. It was that bad. So I am deeply humbled and privileged and grateful to my readers, my fans, my followers. I hate the word followers because we all walk together. We walk side by side. I tell them, take my hand. If you're lost, I know the way from here.
That's right.
Just, hang in there. We're in this together. We are all in this together. And if we continue our commitment toward the greater good, toward the healing of humanity and a planet that needs to be resurrected, for the damage to stop, for the bleeding to stop, for us to turn a course, I think that I can't think of anything more important than knowing that we are loved and that people are intergalactic brothers and sisters are watching over us, lifting us up. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, I tell you what, it really is. And I'm peripheral to your Buttercup Brigade but I am a huge part of your tribe. But I love the Buttercup Brigade because you know what? They're always so positive. And I'm positive we have to take a 2-minute break.
Okay.
So we will be right back. And thank you for having that page, by the way. I love it. Be right back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And here we are. I am so enjoying this conversation, and I'm so loving the tribe being up in here. So I just love that when I have you on, that I get to see and chat with them. But you really have come so far, and I have no idea what that was. But it is fascinating to me how far you have come. Things were just absolutely so scary and so hard, and y'all all came through it, and tight and tough, and I just think it's wonderful. I think it's beautiful. And
Well, I have often said that I think that it's because I have witnessed for myself, seen for myself, the dark side of
yes,
existence. I know that pure evil exists, and I think it's because I have seen that that I choose to live in the light. And I really do believe that that's a choice that each one of us makes every single day.
yes,
What our particular perspective will be, what our attitude will be, what our approach to life and to each other will be. And I've always said, when I see people being, vitriolic and unkind to each other, and, believe me, I have my moments too. I'm not perfect by any stretch. But when I see the almost inherently combative nature of human beings and how nasty we can be to each other, it reminds me that there's 1,000 different ways to say anything and everything, and that we decide what we're going to give ourselves permission to do in terms of crossing that line. And there's way, way, way too much of it going now. But I also think that this is a time in the course of human history where our darkest impulses are rising to meet our better angels, and what is dark within us is rising to the surface to be illuminated by intergalactic light, by source light, by something so powerful that it has the opportunity to lift us up out of
yes,
our own self-made disaster and literally permanently alter the course of human history. And I think that each and every one of us is here now to play a role in that process. And so I gratefully contribute whatever I can of my own knowledge, my own abilities, and my pure, unadulterated love for humanity. It doesn't mean I have to love every single human. There are some aberrant humans out there, but I love humanity.
right. And
And
there
so
is a
it's
difference.
whole,
People don't always
yes.
get that, but there truly is.
Mm-hmm.
And
If we hold this vibration, if we just hold this love vibration, we're lifting up. We're lifting the whole planet up,
yep,
each one of us. It's the whole notion of throwing a pebble in the pond and then seeing the ripple effect.
absolutely it
That
is.
is far and wide. Every act of kindness, every smile, every sweet gesture, every helpful hint, everything that we can do to make somebody else's life a little easier, a little more joyful. Everyone that we run into is the walking wounded. Every single one of us. If you get to a certain age, if you get to an age of consciousness, if you get to an age of reason, and then eventually the age of enlightenment, you have suffered, truly suffered in this life in one way, shape, or form or another. And so I think that it's incumbent upon us to love as powerfully as we can, forgive as deeply and as often as we can, because forgiveness is really a gift to ourselves. And the beneficiary on the other end of it is liberated from the burden of our anger. But I think that ultimately, when we understand and come to a true realization of oneness around this entire globe. And suddenly, no one's language or skin color or, defined borders of a country matter at all anymore. John Lennon had it right a long time ago. Imagine what this world could be like. Set that intention, hold that intention, and love as powerfully as you can, because I truly believe that love is the answer to every single question.
I agree. I was just in Gettysburg for almost a week. I stayed so that I could experience a little bit more of it. And I was walking through, and, well, you know what I do. And it was just so overwhelming, the fear that came before the resolution, and the atmosphere that everyone was trying to be brave and strong through. I was absolutely I became a political activist standing out in the middle of a battlefield in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, because it really is love. We have, you have the left, and you have the right, and you have the middle, and you have the this, and you have the that, and you have the da-da-da-da-da-da, and everybody is in a peeing contest. It doesn't matter what side you're on. There is no communication. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? You can't take that with you. You can't be this angry, no matter who you are. You can't be this angry. You can't let this evolve into a civil war. The epic powers in control, right? That is who is trying to pit us one against each other, and you keep hearing the words, there's going to be a civil war. We're heading for a civil war. Well, hell no, we're not. There's enough people like you and me, your tribe, the Buttercup Brigade, the people that I have that I talk with. There's too much. Light workers everywhere have a job to do. Mm-hmm. And it's time to do it.
Yeah, it's
time. It is time to step that stuff up. Because we can't. That's all I kept getting in Gettysburg was, you can't let this happen again. You have to do something. You can't let this happen again. You have to do something. Get the anger out of your center and put the love back in. Because it doesn't matter what you think of the people who are in control. Whether it's the man in the moon or whoever, that's irrelevant to what needs to be happening. And that's why I think light workers are here, because the universe knew this was coming. And that's why we're here, in my opinion, is to stop the anger, to stop the fussing and the fighting, and just remind people, like Lennon said, like you just said, that if you can't find that love and get that cut loose, it's not going to change anything. And you are one of the best people I know at living that and getting that message out by example. And I thank you for that.
Well, it's my pleasure, and it's my pleasure to join you again, Kat. I consider you a dear and cherished friend, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on your air and to discuss things so openly with you and intelligently. I have done an awful lot of interviews with people that's like, I saw your movie. And that's it. Yeah. That's all I know about you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to run this whole friggin' interview. Oh my God. Right. And I don't have to do that with you. You know exactly what you're doing. And
I know who you are too. And that helps.
Yeah, it does. I think it's what's manifestly most important is that we do know each other so well that it shows. It shows in terms of our willingness to cross that bridge into content that might be a little difficult for people to understand. But we are both brave spiritual warriors. Both of us are, and we walk hand in hand on this path and this journey. And I appreciate you, and I love you with all my heart, my friend.
I love you too, but you know, you're a large part of why I know who and what I am. And opening my eyes, I mean, because we've been talking now for years, and opening my eyes is one of the most valuable things I've ever received from anyone, and that in large part came from you. You opened me up to not being afraid to acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can never repay you for that, or for your friendship, or for, you know, the love that we share. I mean, we are truly heart-to-heart friends.
Yes, we are, and you don't owe me anything. It's my life that is enriched with your presence.
Thank you. And, you know, let's just get out there and change the world.
Yeah,
I'm down with that. You up for it?
I'm doing it. I'm
I
doing
know
it
you
every
are.
day.
I just love that. I mean, tell people about your book again. The title, A Wonder to Behold, but what was the...
The subtitle is Guideposts for Intergalactic Engagement with Humanity. And I would think that it will be available on Amazon. I would say probably within, it should be available everywhere within the next 3 or 4 weeks. And then after, I'm publishing it just in a softbound edition right away. And then later, within a couple of weeks after that, they'll have it formatted for all of the e-readers. And then I will put out a special edition of a hardcover.
Well, I can't wait for that because I'm going to have that.
Okay.
And I just wanted to mention also House of Darkness, House of Light, Volumes 1, 2, and 3. The true story of the experiences depicted in the film The Conjuring. I love those books.
Thank you.
I do. But, and that being said, I appreciate you being here, and I wanted to let people know that John Blackburn of Manchester, England, is going to be on with me next week. He is a brilliant psychic, and he has done a lot of work with some very interesting items, one in particular, and y'all will enjoy him immensely. He's brilliant, and I just love to listen to him. So, but anyway, safe travels, my friend.
Thank you. We'll be in touch soon, honey. I'll give you a call.
All right. Oh, and I did not mention in a flicker. I got called out right in the middle of my chat room.
Yeah, in a flicker. I know.
right.
I was going to say it, and then I was like, I'm not going to step on her toes. But yeah, in a
No.
flicker, if you're an aficionado of time travel and Jack the Ripper, that's the book for you.
Heck yeah, that is. That's a brilliant book.
Thank you.
I could hardly put it down. I had to put House of Darkness, House of Light down sometimes because I was just kind of like, ugh. But in a flicker, man, that's a mover and a shaker. House of Darkness, House of Light is also, but it was not quite as suspenseful as the flicker. You did a great job with that, you and George both. His idea, your brilliant writing, just awesome stuff. So, that being said, thank you. And safe travels, and everyone listening, same cat time, same cat channel. See you next week. Y'all have a good one and love each other out there. Good night.